Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Writing Podcast. I'm your host Adam, and as always, I'm here with my co-host Lindsay Baroker, and we got a good one for you today. We have romance author Zoe York here with us. Zoe, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So, of course, what we were just talking about before the show started, we really want to get into the marketing aspect of things. So, kind of rush a little bit through the beginning. I know that you've been on some. You've had some posts and other podcasts and things, so people probably know a bit about you already. But for those that don't, do you want to tell us how you got started writing and more specifically self-publishing?
Sure, yeah. So self-publishing, I started in June of 2013 after investigating the romance community online for 6 months, a year before that. And I've been a writer my whole life. I'm the child of a writer, and but I started actively writing romance in 2012, and then in 2013 made the decision to self-publish my first book, and then my first series, and it started with the first book that I ever finished. That's really I was so excited to finish the book, and I had a lot of pride in it, of course, like any other author does, and then I joined Romance Divas and took some online editing courses and realized I had a lot of work still to do. So then I spent 6 months polishing that book. And at some point in the process, I designed a cover for my book, and I shared it on Romance Divas. And they said, you don't get to design your own covers if you sub to a publisher. They do that. They take care of all that marketing and the branding and the promotion. And I thought, but my cover is ready, although it was a terrible cover, actually, in hindsight. But at the time, I was so proud of it. And I thought, but I have a book, I have a cover, and other people just are able to publish their books directly, so maybe I should do the same thing. And that's what kind of started me on the self-publishing path. I was pretty naive when I started, because I just published the one book instead of, stockpiling a couple of books and having more of a plan. But that's okay, because I learned as I went, and I developed a plan. The one thing that I did right from the beginning was I had a plan to write a series, and I knew I wasn't going to give up on that series. So it took me a while, but eventually I got on a more aggressive marketing path. And I say aggressive marketing, and only in terms of a writer would think it's an aggressive marketing path. No marketer would think it's an aggressive path.
So you're not always approaching people on the street with your book or anything? I wrote this.
No, yeah. But, so many writers are introverts and really don't know where to begin. So just the fact that I had a pretty widespread social media platform and a mailing list from day one, a website, and a plan to give my first book away for free as soon as I had a couple of other books. That's the extent of my plan, really.
Okay, and we'll get more in the details of that when Lindsay goes into marketing, but I wanted to ask, you started out writing romance. Was there a specific subgenre that you started out, and is it just because that's what you like to read, that's what you wanted to write, or was there some kind of strategy behind what you chose also?
No strategy. And in fact, if there had been a strategy, I would have written anything else. Contemporary romance and small town contemporary romance is a very crowded subgenre of romance, but it is what I like to read primarily, although I do read all subgenres of romance, but it's my favorite. And because it's my favorite, and it's because of what I've read the most of, and it's the closest to my real life, so I have the most experience in it, it's the easiest for me to write. It's what I can storm through now. And at the beginning, it was what I could finish. I had started all sorts of other books, romantic suspense and science fiction romance, and I hadn't finished any of them. And in fact, actually, I had started some small-town romances set in American communities, more popular environments like the Pacific Northwest or small-town New York, and I couldn't finish those either. It wasn't until I set a book close to where I live in the world that I am very familiar with, completely familiar with, that's when I finished my first book. So it wasn't so much that I strategically chose a genre as I chose the only genre that I could write in to start it. And since then, I've branched out of small town romance, although It's where my longest series are and my most successful series to date. But I also write military romance, and I have a single sci-fi, futuristic sci-fi romance that I'm quite proud of too.
Right, that's on the same page as Lindsay just ventured into, right, Lindsay? So, um, is the sci-fi under your same name, or did you split that off as a pen name?
Yeah, no, I did it the same name. For one thing, because it has a very similar voice. When you read, so the book is called The Vikings Peace, and it's a campy science fiction romance. So it's not a significantly different voice than my contemporary romances. If it weren't on another planet and slightly in the future, it would be the same kind of book. And so my readers, well, they took some convincing to give it a try. Once they read it, they all loved it. My street team, when I first posted the cover and I said, advanced review copies of this are going to be available, on Facebook it gives you analytics of like how many people see a post, and then you can compare that to how many people respond and actually engage. And normally, if I post something and I get 50 or 60 people in my street team looking at it, I'll get 20 or 30 or 40 comments. And I posted that Vikings book, and 5 people said they would read it. And I thought, okay, so it's a little outside it's outside your wheelhouse. This is not what you were expecting. But then once a couple of them read it, then others read it, and then they all got excited. So it's a Zoe York book, just like any other Zoe York book, and I will write more in that series. It's just going to be a slow drip kind of a series, kind of fitting it in as fun little side project in between other stuff.
Right, awesome. And I wanted to ask you about, you said you started in 2012 with writing, and you published your first in 2013, is that right?
Yeah.
We were just talking a couple weeks ago about how a lot of people were saying, oh, the heyday of Kindle was already gone by that point, and now they're still saying that, But so when you first started, did you go right into it full time? Were you doing another full-time job at the time? Like, how did you do that transition?
Yeah, I did another full-time job for quite a while, and actually it was my intention to continue, but then an opportunity to transition to full-time writing came up, where I would not have to be thrust completely into the financial responsibility of supporting myself on my writing for a number of months. So I took that opportunity prematurely, I think. I took it at the 1-year mark, May of 2014. And I wouldn't recommend that anybody leap into full-time writing as quickly as I did, because at that point my income certainly didn't sustain it, but within 6 months it certainly did. So it took me 6 months to both increase my backlist, so increase the amount of product that I had on the marketplace, but also to get up to speed of being a full-time producer. Writing part-time and writing full-time are 2 completely different exercises. And that took me longer to adjust to than I thought.
And I've also heard from, recently we had Wayne Stinnett on the show as well, and he said that when he left his full-time job to write full-time, that he ended up not actually writing any more time, that it's amazing that you think you're going to have all this extra time to write. Did you find that true for you as well, or?
No, well, I totally, I'm nodding because yes, I think that that's a little bit true. For me, when I was writing part-time, I was only writing once a week. So I would take either a Saturday morning or Sunday morning. I'd go to Starbucks for 3 hours, and that would be my main writing for the entire week. Now, I do that 3 times a week. So even though I earned an extra 40 hours in my work week, I'm only spending maybe another 15 hours writing at most. It is a rare week that I spend more than 20 hours a week writing, because all the other stuff, as you increase your output, as you increase the number of books that you have available, as your marketing and your fan interaction increases, there's a whole bunch of other non-writing work that also increases at the same time and at the same rate, sometimes even more so.
For sure. And so you first published in 2013. How many novels do you have out now?
Novels? Not that many. People always ask me how many books I have, and I never know. I'm not a numbers person. So I have 4 novels in the Wardham series, 2 novels in the Pine Harbor series, and that's it. The rest are novellas and short stories. In total, I have 15 titles out, but 6 of them are novels, and so do the math. 9 of them are novellas and short stories. So it's actually not. It feels like a lot. I do a really good job of making sure that I'm everywhere. I'm in box sets, and I bundle my own books, so it looks like I have more titles than I actually do myself.
Okay, that's still quite a bit of work out since you first published in 2013. Though 2015 just started for anyone watching this in the far future, so a little over, well, about a year and a half almost, right? So, what does your word count look like per day? I know you said you basically write 3 times a week, maybe 15 hours or something altogether. What does your planning look like? Like, do you outline, and what's your word count goals, things like that?
I call myself a pantser. I do some of the Rachel Aaron exercises before I start, so that once I actually get my fingers moving, I try to keep them moving. I'm not staring blankly at the screen or at the page. Sometimes I can get going pretty quickly. Like when I'm in the middle of a scene, this morning, for example, I was writing 2,000 words an hour. But I'm at the end of a book, and so then it's kind of just spilling out of me. We're in that falling action, and it's just all happening. I would say that my average word count is 1,000 words an hour, maybe a little bit less, 800. And for each hour of writing that I do, I need at least 1 of prep. So, I do think that I work like a full-time week. 15 hours of writing takes up about 30 hours of time in my week. And so I do that. I have 3 days when I go to Starbucks when I have childcare, and then a couple of other days a week I'm writing kind of in little sprints throughout the day around kids and other things.
Okay, and we talked about Rachel's book in the past, so I can put that in the show notes again for anyone that hasn't heard of it yet. It's 2K to 10K, though, is the book you're referring to, right?
Yeah, that's a great book.
And you said for every hour of writing that you do, there's about an hour of planning. Is that actual planning for the scenes that you're writing, or do you mean encompassing like going to where you're going to go write and everything?
Just in general, if I go to if it's a writing day and I go to Starbucks and I'm there for 6 hours, that's generally about how much time I spend there. Sometimes I get a little bit more if someone else can pick up my kids. I only get 3,000 to 4,000 words in there, and I know that when I'm actually writing, I'm writing about 1,000 words an hour. So that's 3 to 4 hours of actual writing. I don't know what I do with the rest of the time. Social media. Doodling. I do a lot of it's not outlining, it's not plotting, but it's just like sketching out my ideas. And this is actually because when I read Rachel Aaron's blog post when she talked about it before I read the book, when she said sketch out the scene, because I'm not an analytical person, because I'm not like that orderly, I thought she actually meant like draw like pictures and arrows and stuff like that. So that's what I do. And then I realized that she just meant like bullet points, and that's less interesting.
Do you post any of these, or are you going to make like a compilation book for your fans later on? These are the sketches for my series.
No, because they always change. Like if you look at some of those early sketches of what I think the scene is going to look like, rarely even by the end of the scene, rarely is it what I thought that it was going to be. I'm very undisciplined.
And one more question before we start transitioning over into the marketing stuff. We've talked about it a couple times in the show. You said, and before we were talking to you about how you're a big proponent of the site, the Romance Diva site, and what it's done, and that it's not just for romance, it's not just for women, which even I had those misconceptions, right? So before we go ahead, do you want to talk about that site a little bit, or how you found it, what's it for?
Do I want to pimp Romance Divas? Yes, I do. It is a lovely, warm, welcoming place on the internet for writers. Overwhelmingly romance writers, but also mystery writers and comedy writers, fantasy writers, science fiction writers. Very low on drama, high on publishing information, both trad pub and self pub. There's an even mix of both groups of authors, and no judgments on either side about which path you take. So if you're watching this and you're not a self-published author, and you are looking for a nice, safe place on the internet to go learn about publishing, then I think Romance Divas is a good place for you too.
Awesome. And I mean, there was more there. I noticed Lindsay kind of her talking about it made me sign up just to see what it's like, and you can't really see anything there until you signed up. So I took a look around, and there was definitely a lot of marketing stuff on there. I'd say there's predominantly a lot of it is industry and marketing, but also noticed one big thing is that there's a lot of connecting, which is one of the big things that we've talked about on the show before, is connecting with other authors and working together for a goal. And I was pretty amazed to see like the difference between, I love the Kindle boards. I go there every day a couple of times, but the difference in the two is kind of night and day. Whereas on there was all kinds of threads about, let's make this writing group and write together and sort of thing. So definitely looks like a good place for starting writers all the way to advanced. So
yeah, and lots of cross promotion, which is something that I think is going to continue to expand in 2015. Not just for me and the people that I know, but in general, I think that authors are starting to understand that we need to work together. And anybody on Romance Divas has a bit of a head start on that because that spirit of collaboration is really strong in that community. Always very helpful, with the understanding that it has to be reciprocal, right? Collaboration only works when everybody's working equally hard, that no one feels like they're taking too much or giving too much and not getting anything back in return. A couple of other things that Romance Divas does, with the understanding that you have to be an active member of the community. You can't just come in and participate in some of these extra things. But there's critique workshops, there's craft workshops, there's an annual mentorship program, and anybody who's watching this, it's too late to join and participate in that mentorship program for this year, but next year, if you're a new author or you're somebody who's been doing this for a couple of years but you're stuck on something, then connecting with someone through the mentorship program, it can be career changing.
Awesome. And like I said, I just poked around there a little bit and already it looked very helpful for, like I said, any level of author, really, just starting out all the way up. So, but speaking about working together with other authors and marketing and all that good stuff, that kind of segues really nicely into Lindsay's part. So, Lindsay?
Hey, Zoe.
Hi, Lindsay.
Hey, I just want to let you know it's called mind mapping. When you actually draw out the scenes, and it's totally legitimate. The Scrivener people have a program called Scrapple or something like that can...
Seriously? Because I love Scrivener, so I would love anything that they create. I will look into that.
Yeah, I still like to do it by hand. I usually do it when I'm first plotting the novel, just throwing everything out there that I want to incorporate, but totally allowed.
Cool.
But for the marketing stuff, I would love to hear kind of how your first book went, jumping back to the small town contemporary romance. What did you do to have a little luck in the beginning, or did you have luck with the first book?
Nothing. I did nothing, and I had no luck. I'm a really good lesson for anybody who's a couple of books into their self-publishing career and it's not going very well. I did not have luck right from the beginning. I didn't have sales right from the beginning. Well, that's not completely true. I had lots of sales. Lots for me as a baby author, to my friends and to my family. My pen name is not a secret, and I have a lot of really supportive people around me in real life, and they all bought copies of my book. But that didn't help me, find other romance readers. And I didn't actually have any luck selling my books until another author offered me a cross-promotional opportunity to be in a box set. That was really my first break, and it was a lesson I had to learn from her. It wasn't something that I knew coming into this. I thought, you write a book, you put it up on Amazon, you write a series, you put them all up on Amazon and the other retailers. I was in wide distribution from the beginning. You put them up on the retailers, and readers will find you. And it's not that simple, particularly in an incredibly wide genre like contemporary romance. When I started, there were 60,000 titles in contemporary romance. In the fall, there were 75,000 titles in contemporary romance. And I think right now there's over 80,000 titles in contemporary romance. It is getting harder every single day to be discovered if that's the genre that you write in. It is almost impossible that if you write a book, and it doesn't matter how cute your cover is or how grippy your blurb is or what your tagline is, it is almost impossible to be discovered if you just write a book and put it up for sale. And that is true for a self-published author. That is true for a trad-published author. I see books every single day, amazing books that have ranks that tell me that they haven't sold a copy in a couple of days. And that's not a failure of that book, it's not a failure of that author, it is just a reality of the crowded marketplace. Wow, what a downer, eh?
Yeah, everybody jump in right now, get your contemporary romances ready, and yeah, I imagine, I haven't looked, I know like in epic fantasy, that's more popular than you would think for geeky stuff, but it takes like a 3,000 sales ranking just to hit the top 100, and I think I've looked at some of the romance categories, and it's even crazier, like 1,500 or something like that to list.
Yeah, it's really hard. And I did, like, I read on K-boards and on Romance Diva some of those tactics, you know, keywords and booking a 99-cent sale to kind of bump you up. And I did try a couple of things. When I say that I did nothing, I mean I did nothing successfully. I tried a 99-cent sale. I tried a perma-free novella. I tried like blog interviews and blog tours and cover reveals. I tried all sorts of little things, but little things don't get you very far.
Yeah, I actually just checked while you were talking, and I was way off. It takes 330 to get to the 100th spot on the contemporary romance list as we speak. That's insane.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And my books, my first series, my Warden series, can't be categorized in any other category because I didn't know I should do that. I didn't know that my heroes should be Navy SEALs, and I didn't know that they should be witches, and I should be able to use sorcery. I didn't know any of that. All I knew was that I wanted to write a romance that I could finish, point one, and two, that was like all the books that I enjoy reading. And the books, as a reader, the books that I enjoy reading were the ones that I found on the top 100 list, right? So I wrote books like that. When really, as a new author, you want to find the right balance between a niche where you might be able to be discovered and something that you can actually write and that it would be good.
Yeah, that definitely seems like good advice. You know, I think when you're just writing your first book, you're just so happy to finish your novel. It doesn't even occur to you that it might be hard to sell it.
And actually that's okay, right? Like we talk about the 1,000,000 words or the 10,000 hours or the 10 books or the 20 books or the 1 year, you know, all these different metrics of what it takes to kind of get past that hump of writing is hard and being a newbie and making some newbie mistakes. Maybe your first book, it's okay to just let yourself write it however you want to write it. Then write your second book and then your third book. And at some point along the way, it will click for you. What is the thing that you can write quickly, that you can write in a marketable way? I couldn't write military romance when I started. My husband's in the military, and it felt just a little bit too close to home. Like I wanted to write fiction, right? I didn't want to write anything that was actually my own real life. And so it took me a while to understand how I could take what I know and still make it quite fictional. And I couldn't have tried to write a military romance before. Now I can, and my military romances do well. They're still not my first love, though, which is really hard also, right? Making that decision to do something more commercial than what you actually want to write. It's a balance.
Yeah, definitely. I've talked to a lot of authors that kind of maybe they'll have a pen name on the side or sort of one series is the bread earner, but it allows them to write what they really want. So I think it's true if you want to be commercially successful, maybe do this for a living, that you know not everybody's going to be lucky enough that their passion is exactly what happens to be hot in the market right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So what was it exactly? Was it a seal set that you did? Was that an original novel that you put in?
So that was actually the second box set that I did. The first box set was a holiday box set called Love for the Holidays with Noelle Adams and Samantha Chase and Rachel Curtis. And my book was my first novel. I had followed Noelle Adams on Twitter when she started. So at that point I was still a reader. Well, I had started writing at that point, but I was primarily a reader. And I followed her on Twitter. I was one of her first followers, and she was a new pen name. I'm just trying to think. Noelle's talked about this on Facebook, so I think it's okay. So Noelle Adams was a new pen name for an experienced author, but it was very much a secret pen name, so she was starting from the beginning again. And she put out a book. Actually, she put out a couple of books as Noelle Adams, and then she put out a book called Escorted by Claire Kent, which was a second pen name, but they were a co-branded pen name. And I read that and loved it, and might have been one of the first people to review it. And I think that made an impression on her. I'm not saying everybody should become super fans or anything like that, but it's one of these things where you never know when you're going to make a connection with somebody. So that happened 6 months before I published my first book. And we were friendly on Twitter, but I didn't really understand that she knew who I was or knew that I had published a book. And then out of the blue, 2 months after I published my book, she sent me an email and asked me if I would be willing to put that book, which was a Christmas story, even though I published it in June, another newbie mistake. She asked if I would put it in a Christmas box set, and I said yes. And it took me not even a nanosecond to say yes. I didn't even have to think about it. My book wasn't making me any money on its own. That's something that I hear about from first debut authors a lot. Oh, I don't want to put my book in a box set yet. It might devalue it. Well, unless your book is on the top 100, I think you're overvaluing your book. Put it in the box set. That's not actually going to cannibalize sales probably from the single title, and it's going to get you huge exposure. Even box sets that don't do particularly well, that don't hit bestseller lists, still get you way more exposure than any single title would.
Right, and did you have 2 or 3 books out in the series by the time the box set came out, or was that your first only?
No, that's the other thing. If you're going to put a book in a 99-cent box set, you want to have some sell-through from that, right? So I busted my butt to get the second book out. So she contacted me when I had just finished writing a novella, a prequel novella, because I had learned that free can push series. So I wrote a prequel novella. Not a good idea in contemporary romance particularly. I also didn't write the right hook for that novella. Long story short, you learn things, right? But I wrote, so I had a novella, the first novel, which would be in the box set, and then I wrote the second novel just in time. It came out 1 week before the box set did. It came out at the end of October. And then the box set came out in November and did really, really well. For the first time ever, I saw my author rank go, it was at I don't know, 100,000 or something. It was down here, and then it went up. And I was like, oh, this is very exciting. This is what a tiny bit of success feels like.
Very nice. And do you think this was a year ago Christmas about?
Yeah.
Do you think that box sets are still useful for people to try to put together? Are they still helpful, or has it become there's a lot of them out there now? So.
There are a lot of them out there, certainly a lot more than there were a year ago. But even a year ago, it felt like a pretty crowded marketplace. It wasn't Noelle's first box set. It wasn't Samantha's first box set. And our box set didn't hit any bestseller lists, but it did sell quite a number of copies, and it still got me a good number of fans. My first real fans came from that box set. And more importantly, made me my first chunk of money. It didn't make a huge amount of money, but it made enough money that I could pay for my first BookBub ad. One of the things that I wanted to do when I started writing was I didn't want it to be a hobby in any way, shape, or form. I wanted it to pay for itself once I made that initial investment, right? For the first book, I paid for an editor, I paid for my website, the domain name, some stock photos. And then after that, I wanted it to pay for itself. So my second book, the cover actually was a free stock photo that I signed up for some stock photo sites, and then after I didn't use those accounts, they sent me some free credits. So the second book, I hadn't yet made enough money to pay for everything that I wanted to, so I had to barter. So I bartered some cover design, I used free stock photos, I traded editing with other authors. I was really committed to not paying out of pocket. And I don't think that's the right way or the wrong way. It was just how I felt. So when I earned enough money on that first month of royalties from that box set to pay for a BookBub ad, I was like, okay, I think box sets are the best thing ever. And I still do, even though it's a crowded marketplace, I have yet to feel like any box set that I've been in has been a flop or a waste of my time. They've all been productive in different ways.
Yeah, I've been in a couple now this year, and I would definitely agree with that. Got the youngins helping out with the podcast.
Yeah, they're like, "Can I have a snack, please?" And I'm like, "Can you ask your dad? Because I'm busy."
No, make it for me, Mom. Okay, and so that's great that first got you some sales, and those contemporary romance BookBub ads are not cheap, so it's good that you were able to make some money to pay for that first one. Did BookBub, I assume, have a big impact when you were able to get on there too?
Yeah, so then in early 2014, a couple of different things happened. We decided to do the Seals of Summer box set. Based on the success of my Christmas box set, we decided to do original material for that, and I decided to summon the courage to try and write military romance, which was a stretch for me at the time. And at the same time, I applied for and got my first BookBub ad on What Once Was Perfect, which was my the first novel in my series. And at that point, I had the third novel come out. So I had, from the BookBub ad, I had a novella and 2 novels as sell-through. And that was, I mean, income-wise, that was certainly a big game changer.
Sure, and it's definitely great when you can reach that many people and potentially get them following through and reading the other books in the series.
Yeah, the mailing list sign-up from BookBub was incredible. And the box set as well, both of those things. For my street team on Facebook, like I have a reader group. A street team is overstating it. It's just a reader group. But that group on Facebook, when I ask them, every so often I ask them, where did you find me? Still, the largest group of them say the 24-hour Facebook party we did for the Seals of Summer launch. There were 10 of us, 10 authors, and we manned a 24-hour Facebook party, which was a little bit crazy. But we had really high engagement for that party, and so many people joined my reader team. Like, I want to say 50 people joined my street team that weekend, which for me was huge at the time. And those people have continued to, be on, to write reviews for me on release day and pimp me out to other readers, and they're just cheerleaders when I need some inspiration pictures as I write, that sort of thing. They keep me going.
That's awesome. Do you find that people cross over and enjoy the military stuff as well as the small town romances?
Yes. The only so I have 2 projects that the majority, so all of my readers like all of my stuff, except they don't all love the Vikings book. I think a good chunk of them, like a majority of them do, but there's a subset who are like, I just don't read science fiction romance. And I was like, but it's campy. It's not like heavy or intense. It's fun. No, still not. A small percentage of them are still not doing it. And I've recently started a new pen name for more edgy stuff. Edgy is it's slightly edgier. I've started a new pen name for cliffhangers. So anybody who's familiar with romance knows that in contemporary romance, in traditional romance, there is no cliffhanger at the end of the book. It must end with a happy ever after ending between the hero and the heroine, and nothing else will do. And there's a couple of other important genre rules, which as a reader, I love, and as a writer, sometimes I find kind of restrictive, right? So one thing that I see right now, a big trend that I see right now, is serials, and I'd love to write a serial. But if Zoe wrote a serial romance, there's a good chunk of Zoe readers that would revolt because cliffhangers are awful, and I don't want that hate mail, and So I thought I'll create a new pen name so that I can write a serial, and it's really clear. Zoe writes this stuff, and Ainsley writes this stuff. And I would say from that core group of fans, about half of them are supportive of the Ainsley product. And the other half are like, I don't think that's for me, which is totally fair.
Yeah, I'm always tempted by serials too. I haven't tried one yet because I also tend to think in full-length novels for one thing. But
yeah,
one thing that's interesting with romance is that often the story ends, and that's probably the last story with that couple, unless you've got some really good plan to, I don't know, take them to the next steps. But how do you find it challenging to get people to go from like books 2 and 3 in a series when there are different couples, when it's not the same protagonist in each one?
No. So that's something, at least about my fans, they are happy to continue all the way down a long series. I'm coming up to February 2nd. I'm counting the days. 10 days from now, book 8 in the Warden series comes out, and I will probably sell more copies of that than of the last Warden book that I sold on release day. Like, that readership keeps growing and growing, which I love and I'm super excited about. So I don't have any problems getting them to continue, because they fall in love with the town just as much as each couple, and they see the same couples, like they see the couples come back. And also, this book actually isn't a standalone couple. This is a sequel novella. It's a wedding from a couple that we saw a year ago, and it has like everybody in the series is in this book, so it should be fun for them. But then there's one more novel that I have planned in the series, but then after that I am gonna pause it. I think I'll probably stop it. I'm not leaving the town, but I'm going to start a new series set in the same community, and we'll still see those other people come in and out as secondary characters. But it's very difficult to convince a contemporary romance reader to pick up book 10 in a long-running series, right? They want to go back to the beginning, and then that's a big investment of time and money. So I'm going to start a new series called Whisper Beach, which is the beach in Wardham. And Whisper Beach 1 will become a new entry point to the series. And then once I trick them, as a mean author, once I trick them into reading book 1, then they'll want to go back and read the Wardham books, of course.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that too. In fact, with my sci-fi romance series, I don't put the numbers on it at all. I've got 4 out now, and any one of them, it's the same thing where old characters become side characters in the new one. But I think any one of them could be a starting point, and I don't want people to be scared off, oh, this is the 4th book, I can't start here. So.
Yeah. I don't number my books on my book covers anymore. I did when I started, but I stopped doing that. But I do number them on Amazon, because if you number them on Amazon, then of course they put them into that lovely series bundle for you, which is very nice. But it's tricky, because all of my books are really, they're character driven. It's a very tight focus on the main couple, and really you could start at any of the books and go up or down the series line.
That makes it nice too when you're doing BookBub ads. For those that can get them. I haven't seen any love with the sci-fi romance yet, but you know, I know sometimes they can hesitate to do like a book 3 in an ongoing series, but if it looks like it stands alone, I think they're more likely to take it.
Yeah, I've had BookBubs on book 1 and book 2 in my series. I asked them for a 99-cent ad for book 3, and they turned me down just last week. But I'm going to try again I'm going to try and do that free sometime later this spring.
Okay, well, I would love to change the focus here a little bit and ask about cover art, because you've got a marketing video out that you did, and we'll link to it in the show notes. And one thing that came up is that you've done maybe like 3 different versions of covers for your main series.
Oh my goodness, like more than that. Yeah. If you go to Goodreads and you look at any of my books, you can see so there's a cover on the left-hand side, and then in the middle of the screen there are editions of your book. I think that for What Once Was Perfect, there are like 6 or 7 editions. Each of those editions is just a different cover. The inside of the book stays the same. But yeah, because I do my own covers, because changing my covers is as easy for me as having a whim and then opening GIMP and making the change and then being like, well, let's put this up on Amazon and see how it goes. I change my covers a lot. More than I should, but I'm not an experienced cover designer. I do have graphic design experience, which is why the GIMP comes easily to me. But I don't know exactly what plays well in the marketplace, so I have to test it out. And once I opened those floodgates and realized you can just put up a new cover, like you can just try it, that was a dangerous discovery.
Have you learned a lot about kind of like what really sells? Have you kind of experimented with which ones do best?
Yeah, yes and no, because I've seen things that I would think wouldn't sell. I've seen them work on some covers, and then the covers that I would expect to absolutely sell don't. So I think the lesson that I've learned is that the cover is only one piece of it. And it is important to have a cover that clearly conveys what's inside the book. It's almost the same as having like a high concept hook or a really clear title. If your cover can promise somebody something good about what's inside, then that is an effective cover. But whether it should be a man chest or a couple almost kissing or an object, that's really hard to say. And I haven't tried objects, but I've tried a bunch of different things. And the ones there, I have a couple of covers that I thought would definitely work, and no go, no bites. So I don't know.
It looks like I like your covers that you have out there right now. They look really professional, and looks like you've done a good job, excuse me, branding them to kind of make all the title and font and everything look like this is a continuing series. I think that's definitely something that's important for people to try to do that.
Yeah, I think that is important. I think that there are other ways to brand yourself. There are some authors that do a really good job of just branding themselves by their name. But I think that they do that in other ways. I think that that's more like guerrilla style marketing. They're really active on social media. Their name is not just synonymous with their content, but they also present a really complete and authentic personality online. And so then their name can supersede that rule of needing to have consistent covers. But most of us aren't able to do that, and so really consistent covers it's an easier thing to do than to be a big personality, right? Being a big personality is hard, particularly for introverts.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to get to that point where my name sells the book. Doesn't matter what's on the cover, no problem.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Well, you mentioned earlier having a mailing list, of course. How proactive are you? Do you just put a link in, or do you promise to give away a novella or anything like that to get people to sign up?
I give away a short story, and I also promise that they'll have an opportunity to get advanced review copies of my next book. I'm not sure whether or not either of those things make as much of a difference now. If this is the same as, box sets, like everything feels so much harder now than it did 8 months ago. I don't know that that's actually true. I think that 8 months ago it just seemed easier, maybe from the outside, or I'm not sure. But I know authors who were offering free stuff and they were having great sign-up rates 6 months ago, and now their sign-up rates have dropped. And I think that that's probably more about reach. Right? That they're starting to reach some of the limits of the new readers to them. And so you have to try to connect with a different pool of readers to start seeing that bump again. I know that like after a BookBub ad or on a box set, you're going to see a nice bump of newsletter subscribers regardless of what you offer. But the more you offer, and then the more you follow through on that offer, I think the healthier your mailing list will be.
Do you think readers are maybe becoming a little jaded at all? Like, oh, another free short story. I don't care.
Yeah, and also I think that probably the readers that sign up for a novelist's mailing list are not the readers who want a free short story. If you're a novelist and you want to hook them with something, you should probably be offering a novel, right? Like, that's your product. A short story, like, I enjoy a short story. I don't get excited about a short story. That being said, I only offer a short story because at this point I don't have a novel to offer, Like right now I'm offering novels for free through the retailers. But I could see a time, maybe in the near future where I change that up. The other reason why I haven't done it is because it takes time. Setting up that free book on my website, because I'm not super tech savvy, that took me like almost an entire day to figure out, I had to code the page on not code, but on WordPress. I had to set up the page on my website and figure out how do I allow files to be there. And then I had to go through MailChimp and figure out all the different places I had to put the little promise of the book. And it took forever. And so changing that it's work. And at this point, I'm not 100% sure that I would see any reward for that work, if that makes sense. It's one of those, there's always a long to-do list of things we could do better. I definitely don't think I'm a marketing guru at all. But I do think that there are some basic marketing things that authors can do that, to be honest, most authors aren't doing.
Well, that's a perfect lead-in. Now you have to tell me what they are.
So, well, for one thing, it's holding on to readers that like your stuff, right? So the mailing list is one way to do it. That passively collects a pile of names. I think that most authors don't use their mailing list enough, particularly the authors who at one point made the promise, I'm only going to send you something when I have new release or super important information. There's an edge of like it's an excuse, you're excusing yourself or an apology to that. Your work is valuable. The people who sign up for your mailing list, they like you, they like your books. You should never apologize for communicating that to them. But the story that I tell when I talk to authors about this is there's this great company, Pure Buttons. They make buttons, and I bought buttons from them once, and so now I'm on their mailing list, right? My buttons say I heart Wardham, and it's probably a trademark infringement, so let's maybe not tell anybody about that. Anyway, so I made these buttons, and I'm now on their mailing list. They have a product that I want, and they send me an email, I swear, like 5 times a week. Maybe it's not 5 times a week. I'd have to go look at my email. But I see promotional emails from Pure Buttons all the time. I've only ordered buttons from them once. Not once do I think, oh, I should get off their mailing list. I hate that they send me promotional emails. I'm happy that the next time that I need buttons, their promotional email will be at the top of the pile, easy for me to find, so I can click and get a discount, right? I subscribe to a lot of author emails. Here's something where I differ from a lot of authors. I am a voracious reader, and the vast majority of authors I talk to, and this is not true for all authors, there are certainly some who read just as much as I do, but the vast majority of authors that I talk to are not voracious readers. They read less than 20 books a year, and they don't like author emails, they don't like newsletters, because they're never going to be the target demographic for that newsletter. But your target demographic for your newsletter is somebody who reads a book almost every single night. And they are always looking for something new to read. So you should never, ever feel sorry about giving them exactly what they want. That's my little rant.
Yeah, I think it's definitely true that you can probably email your people more than most of us do. You know, I think I do once a month kind of for a new release type of thing. But I do if I'm like if I'm also in a bundle that month or something, I'm kind of apologetic. Like, oh, I know I just emailed you 2 weeks ago, but maybe you want to check this out. You know, it's only 99 cents, but sorry, I won't bug you again for a month.
The first time that I sent 2 emails really close to each other, I did. I felt very bad. And then nothing happened. Nobody unsubscribed, and everybody still clicked. And then I was in a box set, and one of the authors said, okay, I'm sending out my second email now. And I was like, you're what? And she sends out 2 emails. She sends out 1 email, and then a couple days later she sends out a thank you email saying, thank you for buying my book. If you have any friends who might like it, forward this email to them. Look at what you did. You put us on the top 100 list. Thank you so much. If you haven't had a chance to grab it yet, here are the buy links. And you know what? People click. And more importantly, nobody unsubscribes. In December, I sent out a newsletter, and this wasn't intentional, but I had like so many things happening in December. I sent out an email in December on December 16th for a new release, December 18th for a new release box set, December 23rd for a new release, December 26th for a cross-promotional event. 4 emails in 1 week, right around Christmas. No great unsubscribe rush. I think I had 3 unsubscribes over the entire week from 1,700 people on my mailing list. Like that is more than I would normally send out. I think that 1 a week is probably my limit, and I like 1 to 2 a month. But every so often, if you have valuable content for them, you can do more, and they won't complain because they actually want to hear from you.
That's great information. You may have seen me over here. I had to type that on my phone. The idea of a thank you email. I know because I've heard the marketing stuff that people don't always buy the first. You know, they just delete it or don't really pay attention or put it off for later. And I always hear you should send out a second email if you really want people to buy something. I'm like, oh, I don't want to bug them, but I love the idea of a thank you email because it's almost like it's not a sales pitch. It's just, oh yeah, and if you didn't buy it yet.
Yeah. I think it's just an absolutely genius idea.
I'm totally stealing that. Do you ever recommend other authors since you're a voracious reader and maybe put the affiliate links or anything in your emails?
I do, and actually, because I was doing that a fair bit, I actually started another website called omgreads.com with a couple of other people, and it started because I was talking to some people, and I was recommending books. Like we were just chatting, and they I don't remember what books they were, but they were saying, you know, I want to read this, and I was like, oh, then you need to read this, and it was Mel Jean Brooks, Frozen, which is a fantastic, she calls it a novella. It's like 52,000 words. I think that's really funny, but that's a fantasy author for you, right? Like a novella is the same length as one of my novels. It's a standalone Christmas ice giant story, and I just thought it was fantastic, and I think I told my mailing list about it. I was telling this author about it, and I said, I wish that I could like just do this, like just say, here are the 4 books you should read this week. I could do that every single week. And my friend Rachel was like, we should do that. Let's do that. So we have this site, OMG Reads. It's a mailing list, like it's a email blast. But the difference between our list and some of the others is that we don't sell spots on it. You can't buy your way onto our list. It's literally just the books that we are recommending this week. And we started it, and I showed it to my mailing list. Like I included a button in one of my send-outs saying, here, check out this deal site. And people started to express interest in it, so we created a Facebook page, and then we hosted a cross-promotional blast in December. And, you know, now I don't know that it's like how I'd want to spend a lot of my time, but it's a lot of fun to recommend books to people. And it's another way to grow a mailing list. And a lot of authors are doing that quietly. I'm not the first person to have this idea, certainly.
Yeah, I think that's great too, especially for authors who aren't quite as prolific and don't have a new release every month or two. You know, they can still get in touch with the readers and remind them that they exist and be like, hey, here's a couple books I read. I like them, and if you like my stuff, maybe you'll like them too. And
yeah.
Readers will probably appreciate that.
And it's a good way to do some market research, right? You can figure out where the limits are of your fan base. So one reason why I decided to go into serials with a different pen name was because I sent out a Deborah Bladen book to my Zoe mailing list, and it had quite a high click rate. So I thought, you know what? I think that some of these people would like if I wrote a serial too.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like a lot of people are trying that, especially, I don't know if you're in Kindle Unlimited now, or if you're still on all the platforms.
I'm on all the platforms for most of my books. My Navy SEALs books and my Vikings book are in Kindle Unlimited because they don't sell well on other platforms. I will happily sell my book on all platforms as long as they sell. But if they don't sell, then I'm pulling them in Kindle Unlimited because it's my business now.
Yeah, definitely seems like the shorter stuff might be the way to go for people who are interested in doing the KDP Select and everything. But I also see with the serials that you're maybe even more likely to get people to buy the next book or the next installment if you do the cliffhanger thing and if you can survive the hate mail. So.
Yep.
I did want to ask you, we're kind of getting close to the end of the hour, but I'm curious, since you do quite a few novellas, what are your thoughts on pricing for novellas and for novels? And do you ever have anybody say, like, oh, $2.99 is too much for X number of words?
Yeah, so nobody has ever complained about my pricing structure. I haven't really tried to test it either. But what I do is I do 99 cents for less than 25,000 words, and $2.99 for 25,000 words to 50,000, like 49,900 words, and $3.99 for 50,000 words and up. And I've started moving some of my novels to $4.99 to differentiate them a bit more from the $2.99 price point.
Do you find that now that you've got a reader base, any difference between maybe if you were at $3.99 before when you decided to jump to $4.99? Did any fall off, or did people just keep right on buying?
No fall off for the books that I've bumped up. Zero fall off. But I did try. When I was brand new, I had trouble selling books at $3.99, and I sold my novels at $2.99 for quite a while. And it wasn't until I had my first book club ad. It was when I've had my first book club ad that I pushed the the second novel, because the second novel was the only thing that was actually earning significant money on it, because I did, for my new release, I did a 99¢. So I had a BookBub ad and a new release. That was book 3. Book 1 was free on BookBub. Book 2 was $3.99, and book 3, which was brand new, I did a 99¢ release that same week. And I haven't done a 99¢ release since. I'm trying it again next week for the first time in a year. I hate the 99¢ price point. It's so hard to make money, and as somebody who now makes money at writing, like it is, as it supports my family, writing supports my family, 99¢ is not a way to support your family. And I really wish that readers understood that. I would happily give books away before I regularly list them at 99¢. So I try not to write things that are less than 25,000 words. But the reason why my pre-order that's up right now is 99¢ is because I wasn't sure that it would pass that 25,000 word mark. And I thought, just in case it has to eventually live at 99¢, I don't want to launch at a higher price than it lives at. So I think it'll end up being, it's going to be a 99¢ launch and then quickly go up to $2.99. Like, I think the day after release, I'm going to pump it up.
Yeah, I agree. The 99¢ for a novel is just nuts, and I will do it for a new release on a new series, just because I know I'll end up dropping the price to 99€ for BookBub and stuff later on, and I hate the readers to feel like, oh, I paid $5 for that, but now it's 99¢.
Yeah. I really like the $2.99 release going up to $3.99 or $4.99 after a week, because I still feel like I'm earning decent money on that release, and my loyal readers are getting a pretty good discount, particularly if I'm going up to $4.99.
All right, sounds like a good plan. I'm going to go ahead and hand you over to Adam to kind of close things out here, if his internet's okay. We'll see. He's out in the boonies.
Yeah, it's funny. We're like literally 3 miles from where the cable lines end, so I have terrible internet, and then someone like 5 minutes away has great internet. So, all right, am I coming through scrambly or all good?
You're good.
All right, perfect. So, before we get to the end, I know we started just a few minutes late, so if you don't mind, have a few questions that came up to ask you before you head out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. First off, I want to comment kind of on that second email blast saying, thank you for buying my book.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, for the first time, we sent out a second email just to the segment where MailChimp told us hadn't opened the first one, and I was surprised how well that worked out also. Just the exact same email, copy and paste. But I was thinking about it the other day. I actually watch a couple of YouTube personality, I guess you would say, videos when they come out, and at the end of every single one of their episodes, they're like 10-minute morning episodes or whatever, almost like a talk show sort of thing. They always say, they don't say, please subscribe, or please like my such and such. They say, thank you for subscribing. They say it as if you've already done it, sort of thing. So it sounds like the same thing. It sounds like it's one of those universal marketing techniques to get people to follow or buy things. So
I just want to say something there before we leave the topic of mailing lists.
Sure.
So I'm doing a thing right now where I'm sending out a novella chapter by chapter, so one chapter each week. And yesterday I sent out chapter 3. And I got a bunch of responses from regular fans, people whose name I recognize and they buy all my books, and from 3 people who said, I didn't get chapter 2. What happened to last week's send out? So I think that MailChimp, I don't think that MailChimp didn't send it to them, although when I suggested they go and look in their sent folder, they're like, oh no, I definitely didn't get it. But I do think that things get buried really quickly. So that just reinforces for me, do the multiple send-outs. I'm actually thinking, for the duration of doing this novella send-out, I'm actually thinking of doing 2 emails a week. One on Thursday with the chapter, a different one on Monday with the chapter, with a link to the chapter in the archive. So it gives them 2 chances to see that chapter before the next one comes out. This is how strongly I feel that people don't hate getting email from me. I mean, maybe I'm super lovable, but I don't think so. I think that it's they've signed up for your mailing list, totally fine. And if they are so prickly that they don't want to get emails from you for a list where they signed up to get emails from you, then you probably shouldn't be paying to send them email. My thoughts.
Yeah, I agree, and I've heard that echoed a couple of times by other people now. And so, like I said, that's the first time we've ever sent out a second one in the same month, and it was actually the next day, and we didn't get anyone unsubscribe either. So, I definitely say don't be too scared to send it, and if they leave, so what?
Yeah.
Right. So we were talking about you're going to be doing a local talk to writers.
Yes.
Is that going to be recorded as well? Do you know, or should I?
So it's in the basement of a library. So, but it's exactly what so. So you guys are going to post the link to my YouTube video, right? And people can also find it on my website. I have a little tab for writers. Let's not overstate it. Like it's not like any genius advice or anything, but it's just like the little things that I've shared over the last year and a half. But it's going to be, I think, exactly the same presentation. Yeah, I don't think there'll be any new content.
All right. And for anyone watching that wants to go to that and watch it, just go to thewritingpodcast.com/6, and there's show notes right under the video. I've actually linked anything that we've talked about, including your reader website for the OMG Reads. So all that's on there for anyone listening. Just head over to thewritingpodcast.com/6. So speaking of that, though, I just recently watched that last night, actually, and this morning, and I wanted to just encompass these rules really quick that you went over in there. So on that, you kind of base the whole show on 7 rules of marketing, and we went over most of those. So I just want to head back through them really quick and see if there's any that we missed in this show. So the first one was make sure you write in a series, which we talked about quite a bit. The second was know the market. I know that you said you started out writing in something that maybe you shouldn't have if you would have known the market. So what do you suggest people do to, find the market to write in, or find a more niche thing to write in? You said yours was too broad, so.
Yeah, so actually that advice is not for somebody who hasn't written any books yet or who's writing their first book, but it's more for somebody who is rebranding or starting a new series. So you have to have, it's almost impossible for a debut author to really get it until you've been through it a couple of times. I had a good friend who knew the market better than me tell me that I should write military romance, that I should make my heroes soldiers right from the beginning. And I couldn't wrap my head around that. And it wasn't until I had written books, even though I read lots of romance, and I had read lots of romance that fit exactly as she described, I couldn't wrap my head around it until I had written a few books. So I think that advice is best for somebody who's embarking on their next series.
Okay, and that makes sense. You were talking about redoing covers and things like that, so advice to someone that's maybe redoing their series cover, make sure it matches for the genre, that sort of thing, right? For the market.
Yeah.
The next one was to grab fans, which we talked about. Make sure, even if you're just starting out, have, if you have someone that wants to get on a mailing list, you need a mailing list even from the beginning, so make sure you have that just so they have somewhere to go once you grab them and hold on to them. So.
Yeah.
Keep writing, we talked about that as well. Branding, we just talked about a little bit. The one that we kind of skipped over at the beginning of the show was seek reviews. So in the beginning, is that something that you did, and how did you go about that before you had a fan base and now?
Yeah, that's a great, thank you, Adam, because that's a great one. That is one thing that I did right from the beginning. I wasn't afraid to ask somebody to read and review my book. And I primarily used Goodreads to get those first reviews for me. So I had been a member of Goodreads for a number of years before I became a writer as a voracious reader. And I was actually already in a couple of groups, so I had the advantage of knowing that some groups do this read and review thing. So I posted my book up. Well, it wasn't like in a huge number of groups, 3 groups. Contemporary Romance was one of them. Some Like It Hot was another. I can't remember the name of the third, but I posted my book up in 3 groups. Some Like It Hot was certainly had the best responses. I'd say probably about 20 people offered to read my book, and I think I probably got 10 reviews from that, which was huge at the time. And actually, that would be where I got my first couple of fans. And here's a really good tip. One of them, I don't know if she'll ever watch this. Maybe I'll tell her to. There's a fantastic blogger named Arati who is she's on my street team now, and she's a really big fan of Wardham. She gave my first book 3 stars, And if I hadn't continued to give her review copies, she wouldn't be on my street team now, and she wouldn't love my series now. I mean, she might have continued to read. But if I had assumed that that first 3-star review was a negative review, then it would have damaged and ended a relationship that's turned into a really lovely writer-reader relationship over the last year and a half. So I was, right from the beginning, I was open to any honest review of my work, good or bad. Here, have a copy. Post your review wherever you want. Say whatever you want about my book, because I trusted in the product that I was putting out there. So Goodreads is good. A NetGalley co-op is another option. It's not overly expensive, but it does require you knowing somebody who has a NetGalley co-op. There's a couple of authors that organize them. I think there's a couple that probably advertise on Playboards. There's some on Romance Divas. So it just means being connected a little bit to the marketplace.
Right, and so Goodreads, it's always kind of, in writing forms of things, talked about as one of those places. It's for readers, so be careful, sort of thing. So, is there any ways for someone starting out that's trying to get reviews in their first book to kind of navigate to make sure they're not doing those taboos like super self-promoting where they're not supposed to?
Yeah, so you don't want to promote your book on Goodreads. You want to look for groups that specifically identify as allowing review requests for reviews. So if you go and look at the Some Like It Hot group on Goodreads, for example, you'll see in the description it says authors are encouraged to post their books for review requests. That's the type of group you want to look for. You don't want to just randomly put the information out there. You have to actually search within the groups. And Goodreads doesn't have the greatest search function, so it can take some digging. It's easier if you are an active member of the group, or of the site, but you don't need to be an active member of those groups, right? Because those readers are specifically looking for review copies.
Right, and I'll chime in that we've tried Library Thing. If anyone else has tried that a few times.
So I've heard of Library Thing, and my friend Kimberly Trout uses it. I have actually yet to be able to, I haven't figured out the site. I don't actually know how to put my books there.
Okay.
Tech problems, yeah.
We've used it maybe 3 times, and you can give away a book on there up to 100 copies. And we've done the 100 3 times, and I would say it's an okay place to do it, but every time we've gotten somewhere between maybe 3 to 5% of the 100 people that get it actually leave a review on anywhere really. Maybe more on Goodreads, but on like a retailer site, maybe 3 or 5 out of that 100 do that. Which, starting out, that could mean getting on a promotions or not. So it's still worth it, especially. We haven't done it in a little while just because now it's not as worth it. So time investment, but. And so now, do you still do that? Do you still post in the review groups and things, or now it's pretty much your fan base that you can count on to review?
Yeah, I have in my Facebook reader group, I have an advanced review copy Google Docs form that I have them sign up on, and every so often I send a reminder to my mailing list that I offer advanced review copies, and if they want to have a review copy, they can join my Facebook group and connect that way. I'm happy to give an advanced review copy to anybody who will leave a review. My rule for the last 6 months has been, if you want to be on my ARC list, you have to have already reviewed one of my books. I always have at least one book for free, so it's easy to download, read, review, and then the Google Doc form asks for the link to that review. And then I don't care what the review says. I don't look at it for there's no quality control. It can be a negative review. That's fine. That's not great. Don't do it. Don't leave negative reviews of my books. I mean, I'm not encouraging that. But yeah, as long as you've left a review of my books, then you can have the new release. I'm pretty generous in that regard.
That's a good idea. We've had the ARC review sign up on the website for a long time. I do that as well, but we've never had the requirement be that you've already had to. It's just that if they get a review copy and they don't leave one, we just take them off the list, sort of thing. So yours is kind of front-ending that, so that's a good idea. You may have to do that.
And I also I have, and again, like Arati and her 3-star review, I have a reader, Andrea, who's amazing, and has left some really lovely, detailed reviews that would help readers choose my books. And then she had a difficult pregnancy over the fall and fell behind in her reviews, and she felt really bad asking for the next copy because she hadn't yet gotten her last couple of reviews up. I never want to encourage that kind of feelings of guilt or responsibility. Like once somebody is a loyal fan and they're putting up reviews, I don't require a review of absolutely every single book. Nothing wrong with doing that if that's how you're running your list, but for me, it's more about I always want the generosity to be on, that I always want to err on the side of generosity when it comes to the people who I'm establishing that relationship with.
Right, and I found that if you set this up, especially very public like that, you're going to get some people probably that literally do it to get a free book. Yeah. But then again, it's just a free book. They probably wouldn't have bought it to begin with anyway. Just kind of like lost leader sort of stuff as well.
And it's a digital copy of a file. Like, it's not like it actually cost me anything other than 10 seconds of my time to send it, right? If I was sending paperbacks, then I'd be way more strict with those copies. If I was seeing a lot of piracy, then I would probably control how I circulate those more. But I'm not an overly pirated author. Shame. Like that I'm not that popular yet. I think that my core group of readers, some of them are older, some of them have little kids, some of them have illnesses, some have surgeries come up unexpectedly. There's lots of reasons why people don't leave reviews, and I wouldn't want to punish them for any of those life reasons.
Right, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so now, going into the last rule that you talked about on that presentation was that you will need to spend money to get your books out there, but to make sure you spend it wisely. I know in the beginning you said that you had like an initial investment, but then after that you wanted the books to kind of pay for themselves.
Yeah.
But as far as spending money wisely, of course we talked about covers, editing; those are all smart, common knowledge things. But what else have you found? Facebook advertisement, or what's throwing it away, and what's wisely spending it?
Yeah, so Facebook ads, as long as the return on investment is positive, so you keep an eye on that. Use your affiliate links and your smart URLs to keep track of those ads and make sure that you're getting a positive return on investment. But as long as you're getting a positive return on that investment, Facebook ads are smart. I have one that I've been running since November, directing traffic to my Pine Harbor series. And I'm very happy with that. So that's an ad I'll probably just keep running for months and months and months, because the click rate the click cost is so low now. It's like 3 cents per click. So it doesn't take, I could have 100 clicks in a day and I still make money on that ad if I only make one sale, and I make more than that in a day. So that's really effective. Those email, all the email blast sites are worth considering. BookBub, of course, because it's a curated list and they turn you down more often than they say yes. They have a very high satisfaction rate with their readers, so they open those emails, and so you get a really high return on investment there. My Romance Reads, eReader News Today, those are the two that I use as often as BookBub, or more often. There are others. The Naughty List is fantastic. It's only $5. Fantastic for a romance writer or erotica writer. Yeah, there are lots to look at, and there's always new ones coming up. BookSense and Free Booksy. Free Booksy I like. Bargain Booksy I have had less luck with, but it's once you it's always good to do those kind of like bundle together. So you stagger, so you put a couple in a row, and then if you don't earn out on one of them, it's still good exposure, and the cumulative effect of the block of ads can be quite powerful. And what's the other thing? The other thing that people should spend money on, and I don't think I said this in my presentation, is craft workshops. I think that we don't spend enough time actually trying to be better writers, and being a good writer it does pay off in the end. It doesn't seem like it does, because we look at books that are like not that well written, but craft is something worth investing in, and that's something that I did invest in before I actually made any money. There's the other exception.
That's a good point too, and just on like the two forms that we talked about, anywhere that I've looked for writers, self-published anyway, most of it is about the market or writing to the market, series, marketing, promotion. There's far and few between craft threads on forums and things or discussion about it, so that's a good point as well. I mean, if you have a really terrible book, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it, it's probably never gonna stick anywhere. So
the flip side of that, and I think this might be my last point, is that those craft workshops shouldn't cost you a lot of money, right? Nobody should be charging a ton of money to teach you some pretty basic things. There are some really affordable workshops out there as well. The one that I took, and I'll pimp for a little bit because I think it's starting next month, is Angela James' Before You Hit Send workshop. It's online. I think it's $75. And it took me from being a mediocre writer to a passably good writer before I put out my first book. I edited my first book again as I took that workshop, and it really tightened it up a lot.
And is that predominantly gearing the writing towards romance, or is that just,
anything? It could be for. He's the executive editor of Carina Press, and they don't only publish romance; they primarily publish romance. But I think that they have some non-romance lines as well. But her advice is universal. It's basically it's a self-editing workshop, appropriate for before you hit send to like sending a query or before you hit publish.
All right, awesome. And I will try to find that link too. I know we have a whole lot of links below the video already, and have like 4 or 5 more that I have to find after this show. But they'll be there. So anyone watching, again, writingpodcast.com/6. They'll be below the video on that page. All right. So, Lindsay just linked it to me, I believe. So I will. I'll link it now for sure. All right. So last question, and then we'll close it out. Let's see. I actually sent this question. What's going to be the most important thing in the future for new writers? So I'm guessing new year, that's probably everyone's talking about what's coming this year. So in your opinion, especially people starting out or not making sales already, what do you think going forward this year with new landscape? What's most important for these authors?
Yeah, cross promotion, finding your tribe, and working together to expand your reach. Sharing audiences with each other. People can read a heck of a lot faster than we can write, so we have to work together and share our audiences. Awesome. And yeah, you said in that in the YouTube video that you read about 100 books a year. I'm sure you don't write 100 books a year, right? So. I'm lucky if I write 10 a year. Lucky, right? So there, I can share my tribe with 10 other people. At least. Yeah, exactly. We're not competing with other authors. So. No. Yeah. All right. Good. And also, one other thing I had a note here is one thing that you said in that, and I'll end on this, in the YouTube video. Again, everyone should go watch that. Was make sure that you're not hoping to be an exception. There are these people that don't follow these rules. There are people that don't write in a series. They don't write connected books. They put out a single book and promote it, and it works for them. But that's one person in thousands. So don't try to be that exception. Just make a solid business plan, like you said, doing those 7 rules, and you have a much more likely chance of actually making a livable income than winning the lottery. So. All right. And before we go, can you let everyone know where best to find you? Yeah, so my email, my web address is zoeyork.com. You can find me on Facebook just by searching Zoe York, and on Amazon, Kobo, Kindle, Nook, all the book retailers. I have free books. You should download them. All right. Well, thanks again for being on, and we may have to get you to come back in a few months or something. So just let us know what you're up to, and we'll see if we can get you back on. So, and. For everyone else, I'm going to use this tactic that we talked about. So thank you for subscribing to this show, and thank you for reviewing the show on iTunes. We're not on iTunes now, so thank you for your review that you've already left on iTunes. So, and we will see everyone next week at the same time. Thanks all.